Hello everyone, welcome to Inside Winston Cup Racing. You're looking at the home that 7-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion Richard Petty grew up in Level Cross, North Carolina. His mother Elizabeth Petty and his dad Lee Petty still lives there. The shops of Petty Enterprises are just next door, and we're going to show you around this tremendous complex some today, and in the weeks to come we're going to have some specials on Richard Petty. Meanwhile, my partner Steve Burns is in Martinsville, Virginia.
Ned, the 1989 Busch Grand National title was at stake here at this beautiful half-mile track that Clay Earls carved out of the Virginia countryside some 45 years ago. It was a classic showdown between three drivers, the wily veterans Tommy Houston and Tommy Ellis, and the hard-charging youngster Rob Moroso.
Steve, 21-year-old Rob Moroso won the Busch Grand National Championship in a race that saw Tommy Houston and Tommy Ellis fall out in the final stages. We'll talk with Moroso about his monumental victory.
We'll also have the results of the Unical 76 Pit Crew Championship as Dale Earnhardt's crew goes for 5 titles in a row.
And you'll meet Mark Stahl, another driver chasing the dream of making it on the Winston Cup circuit.
Today's show is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Old Milwaukee and Old Milwaukee Light. It doesn't get any better than this. And by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference.
The 1970 Superbird, one of the cars that Richard Petty drove, and it's on display in the Richard Petty Museum, which is open 6 days a week for fans to come by and look at all the things on display here, a couple hundred trophies and a lot of mementos of the accomplishments that he's had over the years, including the 200 wins. Now at Martinsville, Virginia this past weekend, the battle for the 1989 Busch Grand National Championship was at stake.
For a complete wrap-up of the 1989 Busch Grand National Championship race and all the other Busch Grand National news from Martinsville, here's Tommy Kirkman.
Today's Busch Grand National highlights are brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
All three drivers had different goals for winning the championship. Houston seeking his first national title in 25 years of racing. Moroso looking to become the youngest Busch Grand National champion ever. And Ellis trying to defend the title he won a year ago. Moroso started on the outside of row 1, while Houston went 6th and Ellis 13th. On lap 26, a caution for debris came out, and Tommy Houston chose a unique strategy and dove into the pits for a splash of gasoline. While he was now assured of going the distance, he would have to make his way through the entire field. Meanwhile, Tommy Ellis began picking off cars one by one, and by lap 50 was challenging Moroso for the lead. Ellis passed Moroso 5 laps later and set sail on the rest of the field. The race was relatively accident-free until Jeff Burton got tangled up with Rick Mast. Mast pitted for repairs, but the pole sitter soon retired for the day. By the halfway point, Tommy Houston had climbed back into the top 10, needing only a 4th place finish to claim the points championship. Houston and Morgan Shepherd were battling on lap 122 when they bumped. Shepherd and Martin Truex spun, but Houston managed to get by with little damage. With radio communication temporarily out of service, Houston's crew used their signboard to signal him that his sheet metal was intact. When racing continued, it was still Tommy Ellis out front. L.D. Ottinger passed Moroso for 2nd with 70 laps remaining. Any hopes Tommy Ellis had of defending his title went up in smoke on lap 160 when he developed an engine problem. With Ellis out of the chase, Moroso began the duel L.D. Ottinger for the win. Tommy Houston had maneuvered his Buick into 5th place, which would have clinched the championship for the popular veteran. But with just 25 laps to go, Houston's motor erupted. Cruel mechanical fate sent a heartbroken Tommy Houston to his trailer. L.D. Ottinger hung on for his first win in 3 years, but Moroso's 3rd place finish clinched the grand prize, the 1989 Busch Grand National Championship. When first Ellis and then Houston fell out, did Steve Bird communicate any kind of message to you, and what was it?
Well, my father came over first, and he said, you know, I passed Ellis when he had trouble, so I knew that. But then when Houston had trouble, my father came over and said, now Houston's behind the wall, finish the race, and we can win this thing. And, you know, just take it easy, let Harry by and stuff like this. And I wasn't about to, you know, I just said, well, if Harry's faster than me and starts beating on me, of course I'll pull over because I want to win the championship. But if I can stay in front of him, I'm not going to just play dead. And so they wanted me to just take it easy, and I think I did a good enough job for them, and we won the championship, and it wasn't all me. The Swisher Sweet crew just did an excellent job, and the Oldsmobile I was driving today, driving all season, was, I say, more than not, in different races. My car's been the fastest one all year. Just in the middle of the season, some experience hurt us, you know, that the older drivers have, and that hurt us, and a lot of luck. Just real fluke things just hurt us a little bit, but it all came back to us. And I mean, I can't believe it yet, or I'd be jumping up and down, you know, or freaking out. But it's just hard to believe. I mean, it really is.
As the Busch Grand National season drew to a close here at Martinsville, Virginia, several of the series' top drivers made announcements regarding their plans for 1990. We all know that champion Rob Moroso will be in the Winston Cup ranks next year, but Crown Petroleum has signed Jimmy Hensley to drive their Oldsmobiles full-time on the Busch circuit next season. Also, Tommy Houston has landed Rose's Department Stores as his sponsor for next year, and Harry Gant and Skoll will reunite once again. Busch rookie Jeff Burton will join forces with one-time great Sam Ard next season, and Steve Grissom, the driver of the Texas Pete Pontiacs this season, will form his own team next year with Big Mama Meats as his primary sponsor. Finally, Ronald Cooper is set to announce a deal that will allow him to run full-time next season in his quest for a Busch Grand National Championship. We'll keep you up to date during the off-season on any developments in the Busch Grand National Division here on Inside Winston Cup Racing.
We need to take a short break right now. When we come back, we'll have all the highlights of the Unical 76 Pit Crew Championship in Rockingham, North Carolina, and it was an upset as Dale Earnhardt's team failed in their bid to win their 5th consecutive title.
And we'll also update you on the latest NASCAR Winston Cup news and have more from here at Petty Enterprises. Now, this is a 1974 Dodge, and it was one of Richard Petty's favorites. We'll be right back.
If we were to be good enough to beat them, just have a good stop and beat them, it'll work on them for the championship too. Yeah. I can promise you.
We're now going to leave the Richard Petty Museum and take you to another part of the Petty Enterprise complex here at Level Cross, North Carolina, where they actually build and maintain the STP Pontiacs that Richard Petty drives on the Winston Cup circuit. Recently, the Unical Pit Crew Championship was held at Rockingham, North Carolina. For 4 straight years, the Dale Earnhardt Goodwrench team had claimed that crown, but they were dethroned in 1989 by the Darrell Waltrip crew.
And here's how the competition worked. The driver brought the car down pit road and tripped a timing light. At that point, the crews feverishly went about their jobs of changing 4 tires and emptying 2 cans of gasoline. The driver then takes off, breaks the timing light at the other end, establishing a base time. But NASCAR officials go over the car, checking for loose lug nuts and excess gasoline. If they do find those things, they're assessed penalties in seconds. Now, the key is to have a blazing fast stop with no mistakes.
The morning of the Unical 76 Pit Crew Championship found the contending crew chiefs prepping their teams for the big showdown.
John, when y'all get through on the left side, now quit, so I'll know. Get out of the way. Just be good and safe on the right, and we'll just have a good stop.
That's a little bit far down for the ball.
Yeah, I got to bring it back to that line, okay?
Put it at about this line.
You just, you know, when you roll off down there, Walter's going to torque the lugs. Just hold the brake real good before he starts that mess.
A record 27 teams entered the contest, and the first team up was Dale Earnhardt's Junkyard Dogs. Dale came down pit road a bit too hot, and Cecil Gordon took a shot to the knees. That mistake may have knocked the team out of sync.
What'd you think of the stop?
people seem to be disappointed just a bit.
We are disappointed. It was a very poor stop for us. It really was.
The Kirk Shelmerdine-led crew was penalized 6 seconds, leaving the door wide open. The surprise stop of the day was turned in by Lake Speed's Bullseye crew. The team has suffered horrendous luck this year, but enjoyed a brief moment in the spotlight by completing the stop in just over 26 seconds with no penalties.
Hey, a thing like this could help the morale on this team. You've had some tough luck.
Well, we've had tough luck, but the morale's been up in this team all year. That's why I say, regardless of the time, I got the best team.
The next 11 teams aimed for the Bullseye crew, but none were successful. The Tide team kept a watchful eye on the competition as they waited their turn.
Yeah, we're hoping to do pretty good. Everybody's had a lot of penalties today, so penalties might be the key. We're going for a good, solid stop with no none of those 3-second defeats.
Crew nailed the stop and eclipsed almost 2 seconds off the lead time with no penalties. Serious contenders remained, however, including the stout teams of Bill Elliott, Terry Labonte, and Rusty Day, but 6 seconds and penalties killed their chances. Jeff Heyman crossed his fingers until the final teams had finished. For their victory, each member of the Tide crew took home a gold ring and a share of the $7,000 first prize.
The last time I was on a winning pit crew deal was in 1979 with Junior Johnson, and the guys have worked so hard this year, and we just, I'm just so proud of them. I don't know what else to say, and I just feel very lucky.
Well, certainly the Tide crew did make a flawless stop. We moved inside the Petty Enterprise Complex where they build and maintain these STP Pontiacs that Richard Petty drives. We need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll update you on the latest Winston Cup news, including Rusty Wallace's plans for 1990. Steve?
And we'll have the last details of how you can win the Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes. You'll also meet Mark Stahl, a young man who's trying to crack it in the big time on the Winston Cup circuit. And here's this week's Peak Cool Move.
Today's Peak Cool Move is brought to you by Peak Antifreeze and Summer Coolant.
Harry Gant refuses to get intimidated by Rob Moroso on the final lap of the Winston Classic 200 in Martinsville, Virginia. Harry Gant holds his line as L.D. Ottinger goes on to take his first win in 3 years. Gant would finish second.
Next week here on Inside Winston Cup Racing, we'll have all the highlights from the AutoWorks 500 Winston Cup race in Phoenix, Arizona.
And we'll have the drawing for the Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes, where you could win a trip to New York City for the NASCAR Winston Cup Awards Banquet.
We'll also give you a behind-the-scenes look at the Busch Grand National Championship as it went down to the wire between Tommy Houston, Tommy Ellis, and Rob Moroso.
Dale Inman and the rest of the STP crew are pretty far along with the Pontiac that Richard Petty plans to drive in the 1990 Daytona 500, so he's not ready to retire yet. One of the big stories of 1989 was the fact that Rusty Wallace sued his car owner Raymond Beadle back in July for breach of contract. Beadle countersued. They've gone back and forth in court, but it all has been settled now. For more details, let's go to Randy Pemberton.
A prevailing theory is that Rusty Wallace wanted out of his contract to start his own team. Beadle and Wallace announced that they will be together for at least one more year, with Miller Genuine Draft as their new sponsor.
We put a multi-year contract together with myself. We put a one-year contract together with Raymond. And I'm not saying that might not go on and forever, but right now it's just the situation they wanted to take. And so we did that, and I'm really excited about it.
Construction continues on land behind the Charlotte Motor Speedway that will eventually be the race shops for Bobby Allison's first-year team.
Well, another driver that was supposed to start his own team in 1990 and run a full schedule was Terry Labonte. But in recent weeks, there has been heavy speculation that Labonte, because he couldn't secure the sponsorship, will run as many as 15 races for the Jackson brothers, replacing Phil Parsons in that car. The remaining number of races will be run under the Labonte banner.
The racing world mourns the recent death of Darrell Derringer. Darrell won 7 Winston Cup races in his career and was inducted into the National Motorsports Press Association Hall of Fame. Derringer passed away after a long bout with cancer.
Of course, our heartfelt sympathies go to the friends and family of Darrell Derringer. He was a great man. Several years ago, Mark Stahl moved his entire family all the way across the United States, from San Diego, California to the Charlotte, North Carolina area in hopes of cracking it on the Winston Cup circuit.
Good afternoon, Mark Stahl Racing.
Mark Stahl is living proof that appearances can sometimes be misleading. He's only qualified for a couple of races this year, and since making his Winston Cup debut in 1981, the most races he's run in one season is 11. He works out of a shop that he built by himself behind his home. He builds his cars from the ground up, and that includes everything from bending and forming the steel tubing for the roll cage to doing his own engines. Currently, Mark has only one full-time employee, and while it may appear that he's struggling, he's built a decent living for himself by doing his own engineering and building cars for other teams. The 3-time Ironman winner of the Baja 1000 is making progress slowly but surely in Winston Cup racing.
Well, Mark, what were the circumstances that brought you all the way from California to Monroe, North Carolina?
Well, Winston Cup Racing is something that I always wanted to do, and really with the money that I generated off-road racing, I built a car and raced the Winston West Series, and I did that for 1 year with the intentions of moving to the East Coast to race Winston Cup.
And then how did you get out here? I mean, did you just pick up your wife and family and say, here we are?
Yeah, we moved all of our household stuff and all of our shop equipment and everything, and it took us two complete trips to get it all out here. It was quite a chore moving everything across the country.
So you had to drive out here, dump the stuff off and go back?
Right, with 2 trucks. She drove one and I drove one.
Until Mark is able to secure sufficient sponsorship, he'll be at a serious disadvantage. Even though his equipment is top-notch, the odds are still very much stacked against him.
Really the toughest part, like you say, for us when we go to the race is just getting qualified for the race. We usually say once we get qualified, the hard part's over with, because the race it's usually a little more enjoyable than trying to get ready for qualifying, because the pace to get ready for the race isn't anywhere near what it is to get ready to qualify and to qualify for the race.
Mark recently suffered a setback trying to qualify for the AC Delco 500 in Rockingham. After testing and a good first day of practice, Mark thought he was in fine shape. But in the second round of qualifying, disaster struck. His battery was dead as a rock. After moments of panic, Mark got the car fired, but was off the mark on his one-lap attempt.
What was it? 140? Shoot.
Yeah, there's times it really does get frustrating. You know, when you go to a race and you don't qualify, or there's times we've gotten ready for a race and we haven't had the money to go and we've had to stay home. And really this is pretty much all I've done in my adult life, so we just keep trying. You know, we know it'll work out sometime.
Mark will go back to work and prepare for the race in Atlanta, putting his Winston Cup dream on hold for another 2 weeks.
Well, Mark has had some good runs on some of the longer racetracks, so hopefully he will do good in Atlanta. Now, fans, this is your last chance to enter the Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes, because our drawing will be held here.
Winston Cup Racing opens the book on the greatest adventure in motorsports, the Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes. Co-sponsored by the publishers of Winston Cup 89, the definitive recap of the 1989 NASCAR season, the Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes could put you right where the action is. Win a Winston Cup sports pack filled with merchandise from inside Winston Cup Racing and NASCAR stars. Win admission to the world-famous Fast Track Driving School, where you'll experience the thrill of driving like the pros. Win an all-expense-paid trip for two to next February's Daytona 500, plus accommodations, rental cars, spending money, and more. Or win the grand prize, a trip for two to the Winston Cup Awards Banquet this December in New York City, including 3 nights at the Waldorf Astoria, breakfast with the champion, Broadway show tickets, $500 in cash, and more. Enter one of 2 ways. Order your copy of Winston Cup 89, your source for the most complete coverage of the Winston Cup season. Race highlights, statistics, thrilling photography, it's all part of this beautiful hardback collector's edition, with pages upon pages of the action, drama, and excitement of the race to the 89 championship. A must for any race fan at only $29.95 plus $3 shipping and handling. Order now by calling 1-800-535-7700. That's 1-800-535-7700. Your order automatically enters you into the Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes. Or you can enter by sending your name, phone number, birth date, and address on a 3x5 postcard to Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes, P.O. Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. Don't miss your chance to join the adventure. Book your entry now. Winners will be selected by random drawing. You must be 21 or older to win. All telephone order entries must be received by midnight November 5th. All postcard entries must be received by 5 p.m. November 8th. The Winston Cup 89 Adventure 500 Sweepstakes. Enter today.
Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Now, we'll let you know when we plan to run those specials on Richard Petty. Steve?
And our congratulations to Rob Moroso for becoming the youngest Busch Grand National Champion ever. And thank you for watching us here on TNN. We'll see you next week.
Today's show has been brought to you by Ford and your local Ford dealer, winning the world over with 1989 trucks that are built Ford tough. And by Old Milwaukee and Old Milwaukee Light. It doesn't get any better than this. And by Goodyear Eagle Tires. Goodyear, because there really is a difference. Inside Winston Cup clothing provided by Sports Image Incorporated, suppliers of quality racing apparel. Communications for the Inside Winston Cup Racing crew provided by Racing Radios, Forest Park, Georgia, the official communications of NASCAR.